The date is July 13th, 1983. This is Jeff LePage, and I'll be interviewing Mrs. Annie Duffy of Kincora, PEI. So would you have any things like material culture from Ireland, like, for example, heirlooms, like vases or things like that, handed down through the family, or anything in that line, an old rug?
No, not from Ireland, no.
Everything pretty well was divided up and just gradually wore out or whatever.
Well,
Yeah.
you wouldn't know what happened, you know.
And how about documents or deeds or things like that? Like old deeds or
No.
like that? No. You
No.
show me your family histories, which would be another question I'd ask. But like the family histories, we know you have no songs or music or thing like that from Ireland, or
No, I don't think so. No, not, I mean, nothing that certainly my grandfather and grandparents took. I'm sure there's nothing like that around.
I see. How about,
You know, for me,
right,
anyway.
Right. How about the original house that he would have built on the island? Would it still be around, do you think?
No.
No,
No.
it's gone, is it?
Yeah.
I see. And he was a farmer when he came up here.
Yeah, but there is another house on it, you know.
All right, they rebuilt
Oh,
over the
yes,
old
I
one?
mean, but not the old house.
Not the original one, no. I see. Did you ever hear any I don't know, stories or anything like that handed down to the family about what it was like, even in your grandfather's day or even in your father's day, about being Irish? Like anything about? I've heard a lot of stories about dances and things like that were quite quite wild.
No, actually, no.
No?
See, you know, my grandmother was, well, when I was 20, she was 90, eh?
Right.
So, you know, no, I don't ever remember saying anything about Ireland at all. Never, really.
Is there anybody who's famous in your family or has gone on to be doesn't have to be a movie star or anything like that, but a lawyer or a doctor or something like that?
In the McKeevers, I don't think so. I just can't recall. Well, we've had, they specialized in teaching, I think. We had a lot of teachers.
Right.
Like there were several of these ladies teaching. Where's our, that's this one here. She was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teachers there.
5 teachers just from the one family.
Yeah, that was like my aunts and uncles.
And they would have taught around this area, or?
Well, not particularly, no. But there were 2 of them taught in this area.
Which 2?
2 of them were nuns,
Oh,
Charles and this Minnie, but she taught Tignish.
I see.
And Emily and Faustina, they were nuns. They went to St. Paul, Minnesota, and were sisters. And one of them was a nurse and one of them was a nun eventually.
Good. Is there anybody who's...
I can't, no, that's the most they ever were, as teachers, I think.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any, my sisters were teachers and nurses, you know, and the boys were farmers for the most part. I had one brother teacher, by the way. My oldest brother was a teacher. It's so long ago you kind of half forget, you know.
Yeah, right. I know what you mean. Yeah.
But I have 2 sisters, nurses, and they were teachers. One of them was a teacher first.
Right. And then became a nurse?
And then became a nurse, yeah.
See, where did she nurse on the island, like? Or?
No, they live in New Jersey.
New Jersey.
And the other nurse lives in North Adams.
I see.
They're both coming home next week to visit.
Oh, that's nice.
They're
That's really
both,
good.
well, they're, you know, older than I am. That's pretty old. That's getting into the 80s. So, and my sister died last week, who was 89.
See. Longevity's in your family.
Yeah,
anyway.
and she was well and bright and had her mind and mental facilities just great. So that's pretty much all my brothers are dead. I just have 4 sisters living now. Well, 3 besides myself.
Right. Do you know how your grandparents would have met or come to marry?
No, not really. No, I haven't really. There might be some of the family that would know things like that, but
Right.
you know, sometimes if you live with your grandmother, you get things like that, you know.
Right.
But she was next door a neighbor, but you know,
Just wasn't right there, kind of thing.
no,
weren't
you
always
were
there.
not right there for different. She come to visit and be all kinds of things to talk about.
Right. Oh yeah, not anywhere pertaining to her life or anything like that.
No,
just other
no,
things
not
to,
really,
Other
you
things
know.
to say. Yes. Interesting. No things like unusual courtships or arranged marriages or anything like that you've ever heard of? It's all pretty well straightforward in that way, wasn't it?
Everything was pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Let's see. There's nobody that was notorious or infamous in your
No.
family?
No, thank God. There wasn't anyone either.
Yes, I see. No, well, what we're mainly looking for is, just little things that might have happened, like when, for example, your grandfather was building his house, or even when your father was building his or moving into his, anything that might have happened. Or
Well, I often remarked about my own family here, you know, we never had any real misfortunes. I've got 14, and I've got 36 grandchildren, and they're all, I've got one that has cystic fibrosis, and that's the only one that has anything, and she's getting up to 20, and she's, able to go to school, and you wouldn't know there's anything wrong with her.
Right.
But we never had any serious accidents. We never had any serious problems.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, it sure is. And I mean, like my father's family were pretty much on that same line, They never had any disasters. Like some people have car accidents and they're in the hospital for months, and they have retarded children and all that kind of thing. But I have none of that. Everything is just almost miraculous, in a way.
Yeah, somebody up above is looking down at you.
Yeah.
I see.
Well, I don't think it's either. I think that nature goes along. I don't think the Lord has any great doings in your, day-to-day business.
Right.
But except you plead or pray very hard. I mean, if your father and mother are well, the children are usually well. The father and mother have all kinds of diseases. The children are going to have them too, eh?
True. Because they'll be exposed.
And I mean, I don't think the Lord interferes with that type of thing,
Was your family fairly religious in that way?
Well, yes, we have a fairly religious family. Yeah.
The whole attending church, fairly.
Mine too, along with my parents,
Right. We just, can you remember when your father was building the house, or was it pretty well back?
Yeah, well, you mean the first one? Well, no, I couldn't really remember that. I remember when he built the second one, though.
Right.
Or, I mean, he renovated his own house, like he had living in this small house, and they renovated another one. That was like in 1927.
I see.
Well, I was in college when he was doing it, actually. So, I don't really remember all that much about it either. What would you want to know about that now?
Oh, just anything.
Just nothing. Well, I mean,
like
I say, there was never any real alarming stories or miracles in one way or another. And they lived long years, and my mother, I don't ever remember being in bed, sick. And my father was sick a couple of times, but
not seriously.
Not serious. But then, I mean, he died at 84, was it? I think it was 84 he was when he died.
Well, did everybody get along fairly well in the community? Like, there's no animosity between groups like Irish and Scotch, for example, or Irish and English, or whatever?
Well, no, we were all Irish here, see. But no.
There's no problems in that way?
Not really. My mother and father are very peaceful citizens, I think.
Right.
They had very few enemies. And
it doesn't
the
take
only
much
time that I ever remember anything would be maybe election night or something like that, when the neighbors would get drinking and drunk, maybe.
Things that happen.
I don't ever remember my father being he might be among them, but I don't ever remember him being drunk.
Right. I see.
And of course, my mother probably, she liked to drink, but
Yeah.
wanted to be off.
Right.
Wouldn't be much around.
No, true. I see.
And that'd be probably a wedding or a reception or a, you
So
know,
it's a special occasion, yes.
or an election time when you've got it for free.
Right. Right. Definitely.
They don't pass much around nowadays.
No, I don't think so.
I never got any anyway. I never remember getting any.
No, I've just heard a lot of stories about, for example, you know, the old barn dances or something like that.
Yeah.
Invariably there'd be a fight break out or something like that, you know.
Yeah. Well, I was never at a barn dance.
No?
I was with one of our own here, you know, maybe 10 years ago that we had it was a new barn went up or a new house somewhere. It was sort of called a barn dance, but no, I've never been at one of these old-fashioned ones.
You never heard anything from your parents about them or anything like that?
No, not really. Pretty tame like that.
Yeah, pretty tame. Oh, wow.
I can't realize it as tame as it is even. Yeah, they were pretty peaceful going people.
Well,
And in the district it was the same, you know, pretty much. So
pretty peaceful,
no,
not too much going on.
there were no, they had their card games and chats at the church, you know, stand in front of the church for an hour chatting.
Nothing, like, never had any major, for example, forest fire around here or
No.
anything like that, or nobody's house ever burned down or whatever.
Not that I remember, you know, I mean, people did lose their houses here and there, still do, eh?
Right, true.
So no, I haven't very much excitement now in my...
Do you remember possibly any traditions that are through your family, or customs, or things that you just always do and kind of take for granted? Like, I don't know, for example, always saying grace before a meal or something like that. Wouldn't necessarily have to be that, but something like that.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but actually, no, we'd nothing that stood out. I mean, you'd always do the same things at Christmas, like hanging up your stockings and Easter eggs, and you know, if the hens weren't laying, you'd think it was bad if you couldn't have an egg for Easter type of thing, you know. Right. And no, apart from Christmas and Easter and.
For example, did your father always decorate the tree, or was it? Did it matter who? Like,
we didn't even have a tree in my day. When we had when I got married myself. No, we didn't have any tree. You just hang up your stocking, and that'd be about it. And the Easter eggs. No, I mean it wouldn't be Easter candy eggs. It would be just hen's eggs if you want.
Right.
So actually, the thing just went on from one season to the other, and they did their work, and we were sent to school and college when we got old enough that they could afford it. So there's nothing very exciting.
You don't remember any kind of a custom or any kind of a tradition, that's the hard thing about those things, because they seem so usual, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just pretty well the same thing kind of.
Well, when you get married, you'd have a wedding breakfast, and then when you come home from your honeymoon, they'd have a party. You know, that was a custom of getting married. And baptisms were just, you took the babies to the church and got baptized, not like it is now with crowds and picture taking and all this kind of thing. I mean, my mother and father didn't even have a camera, It was pretty primeval now.
Right, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
It just happened.
And even ourselves, I mean, we didn't, we were married in the Depression, like 1930, we got married. We didn't take pictures every other day and everything that went on.
True.
And albums and all that business.
You're fighting
The
to stay
thing was to get
alive.
enough to eat and dress the children and get them to school and one thing or another.
That's right.
That was our main thrust. So, there are probably lots of people who have all these things that, happen to you that you say.
But you've just pretty well had a steady
Just
life
had
kind
a
of thing.
pretty, and even in my, you're thinking about when I was at home, like, you're not thinking about how each one of them turned out or anything like that.
No,
Or
just
my father's or my grandfather's.
just what happened to their lives? Did nothing tragic happen to their lives, or good, for example?
Well, not when they were home,
No.
but I did have one brother killed on the train out west.
Oh, I see.
Things like that. I mean, that everything wasn't just rosy all the
I
time.
see. Right.
In fact, my brothers are all dead now, but they died with cancer or one thing or another. But he's the only one that was
Killed
that was
other
he
than
was the only one
kind of
that was
natural
killed.
causes. Yeah.
And my father and mother and everybody that all of my family were just they lived and died. And
That was. I see.
some ordinary disease.
Right. Nothing out of the ordinary,
No.
really, except for your poor brother in the train. I see. Never won any big lotteries or anything like that.
No.
Never seemed to, eh?
Hard work all the way.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, there's not right there. There's not that many people who've had that kind of life. Like you were saying, there's other people who have had problems with their life. Really big.
Yeah, big problems.
For example, like if their house burns down, they lose everything.
Yeah.
You've been fortunate in that way. That hasn't happened.
Yeah, no, we never had any tragedies. I had one brother who was boarding with people, and 3 times the place burned down that he was boarding.
3 times.
3 times, and the last time there were relatives, distant relatives of ours, and the mother and the father and the baby were burned to death.
Oh.
Well, I mean, something like that is a real tragedy. But,
Yes.
I mean, it concerned him at the time because he wasn't living at home.
Right.
But, I just barely know about that because, he lived in New Brunswick and he'd come home and he'd tell you a yarn, and we'd be kids and we wouldn't be listening all that much, So, no, we never had a fire.
Are you superstitious?
Superstitious
at all?
Pardon?
Are you superstitious at all?
No, I'm not a bit superstitious.
No? Your family wasn't at all, or nothing like that? No black cats crossing your path, or ghosts or things
Goblins
like
or
that?
anything were ever get into our lives. Bears was the most scary thing. We're scared of bears.
I see. I don't think you have to worry, okay? Yeah.
Well, no, that's not the point. My children were scared of bears too.
I see.
Nobody ever told them stories about bears, but they get it from one another, they get it from the neighbors.
Right. I see what you mean.
No, not a bear within 1,000 miles, maybe,
Well, a couple caged up at the wildlife park, and that's about it. Mind you, if they got out, I think I'd be worried, but it's the only thing I'd be worried about.
The say bears are not all that.
No, I suppose if you leave them alone, they're not going to...
If you leave them alone, they're over the business. Except they're hungry.
I wouldn't want to get in their way. I see. That's great. Well, like I said,